Hey everybody, welcome to Manor Road Studio, home of the Alive podcast. I'm Dale. Right behind me is Dream. The quote on the wall right now is still the same. When you feel like quitting, remember why you started. Quote of the day that I want you to think about. Sometimes life is about risking everything for a dream no one can see but you. That's pretty powerful. And it's something that we need to absorb and meditate on. Mainly because we're learning to dream again. I had a question the other day that I want to share, and I always encourage questions. There's multiple ways to do that. DaleChildress@iCloud.com. Make a comment right here on this YouTube video. Catch me on Facebook. It doesn't make any difference how you get there. Like and subscribe to this. But here was the question. It says, Dale, do you really believe all that positive stuff that you're always talking about? The answer is an emphatic yes. Now, please understand, I have just as many bad moments as everybody else. I'm dealing with stage 4 cancer. So I'll have my own crosses to bear, my own vices in life. But I figured a long time ago that no matter what I was facing, the chances of a better outcome were much greater if I would face it with a positive attitude versus facing it with a negative. And I've kind of lived by that mantra for the last probably 15 to 20 years. And it's worked quite well. 13 years ago, I had a relatively grim prognosis when I was diagnosed with metastatic cancer the first time. And the only thing I can attribute that to, or my survivorship to this point, 13 years later, is my positive attitude. And it really is. I love life. I love people. I love getting up every day and tackling the now. It's who I am. And I want to share that because it really is possible to have that kind of attitude even when facing the greatest obstacles that life has to throw at us. So don't believe just because something's difficult doesn't mean impossible. And you just got to believe that. You maybe face the most difficult moment, difficult task in your life. But it doesn't mean that it's impossible for you to overcome it. Now, I know what a lot of people might be thinking now, and this is a kind of a deep subject that will take a lot more than this podcast to talk about. And it's something that I had to work out myself. And it's simply this. A lot of people would say it would, Dale, you've been alive 13 years with metastatic cancer is simply because God's not finished with you yet. I'm not going to give that credit to God at this point. To hold on. That does not mean I'm not a believer. So if that was the thought that ran through your head, let it keep on running. I'm giving a talk next week at a local church, and the talk of it's going to be kind of about from atheism to belief, or from non-belief to belief, however you want to put it. And I've struggled with belief for a long time, because you look at people that have prayer chains, prayer groups, whatever you want to call it, and the outcome more times than not isn't what they prayed for, but yet they'll make an excuse that the outcome was still God's will. I'm just simply not convinced of that. Not that it's good or bad. And then I'll have some people, you'll hear people, say on Facebook or say publicly to you, or whatever the case may be, that, they had a car wreck, they weren't hurt in it. Thank goodness. And they'll say God is good, or their surgery was successful, or whatever the case may be. God is good, God is good, God is good. Yet there are 21,000 children starving a day around the world, and their parents are praying to the same God we are. That's a tough position for me to wrap around my head. Now again, I'm not saying God's not good. I'm not saying don't pray. I'm simply saying that I struggle with the belief system that many claim they believe. Understand the topic I told you I'd be talking about next week. From unbelief to belief. So my faith and my spirituality is probably stronger now than it was many years ago. I've been through the indoctrination of religion, and I wrestled that bear for a long, long time, and finally, through weird circumstances, I'm no longer indoctrinated, I guess is the right way to say it. Now, you may say that, gosh, Dale, it seems like you don't like church. I absolutely love church. I think that the social and community aspect of church is freaking phenomenal. There's so much good that comes out of it. When people are suffering, people are sick, people are in need, their church community is usually the first to rally behind them. And for that, I'm just so thankful that there's multiple churches around the country that are able to fill those needs. Is it a God thing? I don't know. I'm not going to say that it is written. I think it's a human thing. I think at the heart and core of who we are social people that love. I've always believed and I've always taught that love comes natural, hate is learned. Hate's not something we're born with. Love is inherent within us. Circumstances certainly dictate how we develop and how our morality and ethics develop. But for those that have what I will call normal is not the right word for it, but for the sake of a better word right this minute, if you have a normal opportunity to develop your morals and ethics, then you're going to have an inherent bit of love in you. You're going to have more love than you do bitterness. I guess I should say. And I think that's God. I really believe that the God within us, the God that created our story, gave us the ability to love others, gave us the ability to love ourselves, gave us the ability to overcome so many injustices in the world if we would just do it. Now, boy, did I get off on a tangent on this podcast so far. But, I want to back up. This is going to be, now you got to keep tuning in because you just don't know where this is going to go next. But I'll continue to finish that story. After I give my talk next Thursday, I will come back and I'll finish the story on another podcast. But in the meantime, go with what I said. Life is about risking everything for a dream no one can see but you. Don't give up that dream just because the path before you seems much, much too difficult to overcome. Difficult doesn't mean impossible. Don't make it that way. Make your life about you first. Once you are healthy, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, at that point and at that point only, can you help others to become the best they can be? It's a struggle every day because there's people around us who go, oh, but man, if they would only do this. But the truth is, if you would only do that, we don't need to worry so much about what everybody else's life is. We need to focus and focus and focus and hone in on the potential our life has. We miss so much by giving up on that dream, letting the dream go, letting our music die, letting our flowers wilt. Your life is worth living. That's one of the things that created this Alive podcast. And I know a lot of the stuff I say is redundancy, but I don't freaking care. Until it soaks in and you realize that there's so much more to life than what you're getting out of it right now. Then at that point, I can go, wow, I can check that off the bucket list. And speaking of bucket list, this is the last thing I want to say today, is, sometimes when we face the toughest things in life, like near death or a diagnosis of impending death, then we say, man, let's create a bucket list. Why don't we have a bucket list all the time? The bucket list doesn't have to have, I want to go to Italy. I want to go tour the world. Maybe you do. But they're simpler bucket list items, and I know and you know that they're out there. You know, one of the things I always wanted to do was I wanted to become an expert at cardistry. What I mean cardistry is simply handling cards. I did not say card tricks. I just said handling cards. So now I can do so much more things with cards than I ever could do because it was on my bucket list, and now that's what I focus on. And again, you go, oh boy, that's really cool. You focus all your time on cards. The whole time I've been doing this podcast, I've had a deck of cards in my hand. See, we can do multiple things. Ha ha ha. No, I'm just joking. But create a bucket list. But let's call it a live list. And I want you to share that alive list with me. Why? Because then there's accountability. Put it in the comments. Send me a private message. Let's set your life back on fire again. Your wood's not wet. It's just your match ain't been lit yet. We're going to turn that ember back into a flame. That's it. So now you know that there's a story that goes from non-belief to belief, from atheism to whatever. It's a good story. It's a life story. Like I said the other day, our life is a story. We fell into someone else's story when we were born. But now we control the story that's our life. I've got my pen, I got my paper, and I'm writing it all the time, and I bet you are too. I want to hear from you. Dale Childress at iCloud, Manor Road Studio, Dale Childress on Facebook, right here on YouTube. Subscribe, comment, like, whatever it takes. Until then, let's do this again tomorrow or the next day until all of us have an alive list and all of us are living our life alive.